winter of 1866. The Great Plains, a world unto itself, untamed by distant maps. This was home to Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, people riding with bison, honoring the great power.
They called it Tetonwanji, the land of the wandering. But peace was shattering. Gold, gunpowder, and something far more destructive. Settler greed encroached upon their sacred lands. The 1865 Fort Laramie Treaty promised protection, yet it burned like dry grass under the summer sun.
Americans saw empty spaces. Lakota saw ancestral burial grounds, their source of life. Conflict became inevitable. The federal government failed to control miners and greedy opportunists, forcing Native leaders to act decisively.
Resistance formed, not by one chief, but by an alliance driven by shared outrage and determination.
Red Cloud, a renowned Oglala Lakota warrior, emerged as a rallying figure, declaring war for his people's survival.
He proclaimed war for his nation's very existence, fueled by anger and defending sacred ancestral lands.
To protect settlers pouring into Montana, the U.S. Army needed a path, the Bozeman Trail. This trail sliced through the heart of Lakota and Cheyenne lands, their most vital hunting grounds.
The Army's solution: construct a series of fortified outposts. The most strategic was Fort Phil Kearny.
Fort Phil Kearny, a raw wound upon the prairie, built hastily and perilously isolated.
It was constructed without understanding or respecting the fierce hostility it would inevitably provoke.
By autumn 1866, war was truly unleashed. Small, lightning-fast attacks plagued Fort Phil Kearny. These swift, harassment attacks targeted wagon trains, horses, and sentries, showcasing Native mastery of prairie warfare.
They never fought head-on. Never. They appeared from nowhere, their cries from beneath the ground.
A lone soldier on guard could vanish in a heartbeat, leaving only a bloodstain on the fresh snow.
Inside the fort, tension mounted. The new commander, Colonel Henry B. Carrington, was more administrator than warrior.
Obsessed with protecting the road, his attention was drawn to an ambitious young officer, Captain William J. Fetterman.
Captain Fetterman was the epitome of military arrogance of his time, renowned for his Civil War service.
He boasted of slitting Red Cloud's throat, bringing his head to Washington. Sadly, Fetterman learned nothing.
He viewed Native Americans as savages, not trained warriors. A grave miscalculation that would cost him dearly.
Your refusal to engage is nothing short of cowardice, sir. We are here for a decisive victory, not to cower behind these walls while the hostiles mock us.
He yearned for a decisive victory, a chance to prove his military prowess and crush the savages.
And then, the opportunity he so eagerly sought arrived with the bitter winds of December.
Early December, Native leaders, including Crazy Horse, High Wolf, and Man Afraid of His Horses, understood American tactics.
Americans wanted land control. Native peoples fought for their way of life. They planned a decisive lure. To protect that life, they had to destroy the military presence, and their carefully crafted plan was to entice the enemy.
On December 21, 1866, a wood train, working a few miles from the fort, was subtly attacked.
This was a staged attack. Cautious warriors struck hard enough to raise alarm, yet weakly enough to seem coincidental.
We knew the soldiers' scent, their fear of encirclement. We just showed them easy prey in the distance. We gave them an easy target in the distance, and they would charge headlong into our perfectly prepared trap.
News of the attack reached Colonel Carrington, but Captain Fetterman's excitement could not be contained. Fetterman, eager for battle, saw this as his golden chance to decisively crush the Native threat.
Fetterman argued it was a golden opportunity. He swore no Indian would escape his sight.
Carrington,
pressured and swayed by Fetterman's confidence in his force, made a fatal, tragic error.
Fetterman could lead 80 soldiers, the fort's finest infantry and cavalry.
Plus 2 civilian scouts, making a total of 82 men under his command, ready for action.
Most crucial condition. Carrington strictly forbade Fetterman from pursuing the enemy past Pillar Ridge.
This ridge obscured sightlines, a terrain intimately known and mastered by the native warriors.
Fetterman agreed verbally, but it was a meaningless promise. He broke orders the moment he left the fort. His objective wasn't to rescue the wood train, but to hunt and annihilate, regardless of cost.
This was much farther than any previous encounter. They had been skillfully led into the depths of enemy territory.
They were drawn through Lodgepole Creek Valley, crossing what the Lakota called Blackstone Hills. It was an exposed area, perfectly suited for a large-scale ambush. The stage was set.
Hundreds of Native American warriors, hidden behind snowdrifts, waited silently. Their camouflage was perfect, their resolve unbreakable.
Red Cloud himself did not participate, trusting his strategy. The task fell to younger, brilliant leaders.
His mission was entrusted to experienced guerrilla fighters, Crazy Horse, He-Dog, and Swift Bear, all master strategists.
The numerical difference was staggering. 82 Americans armed with Springfield rifles faced 500 to 1,000 native warriors. All were agile horsemen, expert archers, and crucially, fueled by belief in their people's survival.
Suddenly, battle commenced. A war cry echoed as hundreds of warriors emerged from every direction.
The ambush was complete. There was no retreat for Fetterman and his men. They were surrounded, trapped.
Fetterman, realizing the trap, ordered his soldiers into a defensive square, an obsolete tactic against nomadic cavalry.
His once arrogant demeanor had dissolved, replaced by a dawning horror at their unavoidable, desperate predicament.
They fired first. Their rifles were good, but they had to stop and reload repeatedly. Our horses, however, never stopped. We charged, loosed arrows, then retreated before they could reload again.
A chaotic, bloody battle ensued. The American soldiers were utterly overwhelmed, their desperation palpable. Their faces, once arrogant, now showed sheer terror as the overwhelming force closed in rapidly. Americans had range, but native warriors had speed, numbers, and terrain advantage, employing relentless hit-and-run tactics.
Warriors charged, unleashed volleys of arrows, then melted into the blizzard, disrupting the infantry's formation.
Fetterman made a second mistake. He failed to retreat to higher ground or a stream for flank protection. He kept his formation on open ground, wanting a European-style engagement on the vast, unforgiving prairie.
The American defensive formation crumbled. Soldiers were pulled from their saddles, their cries drowned by native cheers. In less than an hour, the battle transformed into a massacre. No American soldier attempted to flee back to the fort.
Fetterman's final moments, a look of ultimate despair as the overwhelming force closed in.
No one survived to report back. A complete and utter annihilation of the entire 82-man detachment.
It concluded with an eerie silence. The entire 82-man detachment utterly destroyed, not a tactical victory. It was absolute annihilation, the worst U.S. Army defeat until the First World War began.
As the sun set, native warriors enveloped the battlefield, their victory absolute, their presence commanding.
American soldiers, who mocked their savagery, now lay disarmed, treated as their tribes had been for decades.
The silent snow bore witness to a crushing defeat, an echo of past injustices. The next cold morning, a lightly wounded civilian scout, trembling, ran back to Fort Phil Kearny.
He delivered the horrifying news. Terror replaced pride inside the fort's grim, silent walls.
Colonel Carrington, facing the loss of 82 men under his command, was utterly shattered, almost collapsing.
The horrific truth. Fetterman disobeyed orders, actively pursuing the enemy, a fatal decision. This shielded Carrington from direct responsibility, but couldn't hide the fort's deception and utter humiliation.
A search party ventured out the next morning, facing the horrifying aftermath of the brutal battle.
What they discovered were not just bodies, but proof of an attack by a superior, well-organized, and utterly determined force.
Native warriors took all weapons and horses. Some bodies were scalped, an act of spiritual meaning and retribution.
For Native peoples, this was a divine victory, confirming their power and sovereignty. They annihilated a large enemy force without recorded warrior losses, sending a powerful message of indigenous sovereignty.
The Battle of Fetterman, or Battle of the 100 Slain as Lakota called it, deeply fractured America's will.
News of the tragedy reached the East Coast, causing profound shock and disbelief among politicians.
The U.S. Army, fresh from Civil War victory, could not accept such a humiliating defeat by savages.
The Army attempted a cover-up, blaming Fetterman's stubbornness entirely. But the public didn't believe it.
They realized the Arma utterly underestimated their foe, building forts on complacence, not understanding prairie guerrilla warfare.
Despite Fetterman's victory solidifying Native prestige, it brought a brutal, devastating backlash.
This victory strengthened Red Cloud and Crazy Horse short-term, but gave the government a perfect excuse to change strategy. If forts couldn't secure the trail, perhaps Native resistance needed to be completely eradicated.
Washington responded by deploying more troops, soon attempting to overturn the 1866 Fort Laramie Treaty. The war would continue. Yet, in months after Fetterman's victory, Native tribes enjoyed relative peace.
After that battle, everyone knew we weren't vulnerable. White men became cautious beyond their wooden walls. We showed them the price of entering our sacred land, our hard-won, temporary sovereignty.
The Battle of Fetterman wasn't the largest in Red Cloud's war, but it carried immense symbolic weight.
It proved that, with right tactics and unity, Native forces could defeat a well-equipped U.S. regular army.
Fetterman's fight was a costly lesson in arrogance, teaching the U.S. Army a repeated truth.
You cannot defeat an adversary who refuses to play by your rules. Native peoples fought for existence, fiercely.
Historically, it marked the pinnacle of resistance before industrial suppression became inevitable. This victory brought honor. It was a spiritual victory, a declaration of land ownership without Washington's papers, fostering unity and hope.
The Hill of Blood is where Native people believed they could win, even if only temporarily. The Fetterman Battle of 1866 was more than a military defeat. It was a profound realization.
White men realized they faced not just brave, but incredibly cunning guerrilla warfare adversaries. It was a great victory, brief though it was, boosting Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho prestige. A lesson in self-determination that even the most skilled artillery could not erase from the prairie's memory.